Let's talk waiver wire pitchers. And the first group includes Gavin Williams, who was at Tampa Bay this weekend. 5 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned, but 3 walks to only 2 strikeouts. Ben Lively bounced back with a solid start at Tampa Bay. 5 1/3, 2 runs allowed with 7 strikeouts. And Sean Manaea, another quality start up against the Rockies. 7 innings, 3 runs, 9 strikeouts. Over his last 6 starts, he has a 2.02 ERA, a .98 whip. Spencer Schwellenbach, a strong start at the Padres, 7 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. He only had 4 whiffs, but this is back-to-back starts of at least 6 innings, just 1 earned run in each of those for Spencer Schwellenbach. Chris, how would you rank this group? Schwellenbach, Manaea, Ben Lively, and Gavin Williams.
I guess I would go Gavin Williams ahead of Schwellenbach, but that's the clear top tier for me. And then I think there's a pretty pronounced drop-off where both Lively and Manaea were, I believe, 2-star pitchers this week, and I think that explains most of why they're in the 70% range. I don't see much reason to think Manaea or Lively is much more than a streamer, whereas I think I have Williams ranked higher. I might actually be more optimistic about Schwellenbach at this point. He's got, I think it's 4 quality starts in his last 6. The strikeouts for the most part have been pretty solid lately. They weren't great in this one, but if Schwellenbach can figure out a way to generate strikeouts more consistently, and he does have that 44% whiff rate on his splitter, I do think he could put together a really nice second half. Now, Williams, I think, is the more talented pitcher, but what we've seen from him has just been incredibly discouraging. The decision to swap out the slider for the cutter, whatever the thought process behind it is, and I would guess it's just a comfort thing coming off the elbow injury. He just doesn't feel comfortable throwing the slider, but it's made him a significantly worse pitcher. The cutter is doing an okay job generating weak-ish contact, but it's not generating any whiffs at all, which leaves him with only the curveball generating whiffs right now. The 4-seamer hasn't really been there for him, and so I don't know. I don't want to give up on Gavin Williams because I do think he's talented, but I don't know if this current approach can work. So Schwellenbach I might have more confidence in, even if Williams I think has more upside.
I agree. I think it's really close, and I know I had Gavin Williams as either a sleeper or a breakout heading into the second half. That was before he returned and before we knew that he wasn't going to be throwing his slider. Mm-hmm. And I think that really changes the calculation here. I was going to say the same thing as you. I think maybe this elbow injury in the back of his mind, he is thinking, all right, well, I can't just kind of spam the slider like I did last year. Or even with Garrett Cole, we saw something similar. Like, he's not using his slider as much either. So 2 guys coming back from elbow injuries, I think that makes sense. So it's really close. I think I would still give a slight edge to Gavin Williams, the prospect pedigree there. But Spencer Schwellenbach, a 12.2% swinging strike rate so far. I think there are more strikeouts to come. So, I'm pretty excited about him.
3.53 xERA for the season now. I know the actual ERA is not quite as good, but there's a lot to like here, I think.
Would you drop Christian Scott for any of those names? He had a rough start this weekend up against the Rockies. Should be a good matchup, but 4 1/3, 3 runs allowed. He gave up 2 homers in that start, 4.36 ERA. Would you drop Scott for any of those names?
Again, because I'm not all that interested in Sean Manaea or Ben Lively, it might just depend on what the next matchup for all 3 of those guys looks like and who has the best one, which we don't quite know yet because teams haven't set their rotations. So right now, I would not. If Williams or Schwellenbach were available, I'd be okay dropping Christian Scott. But I'm very disappointed in Christian Scott. Sounded like a dad when I said that.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not mad. But there aren't a ton of great pitching options available on the wire right now. Like River Ryan, we don't know what the role is going to be. Yariel Rodriguez hasn't thrown more than 85 pitches. Germán Marquez, I thought looked okay, but again, not someone we're excited about. So while I'm inclined to be willing to drop Christian Scott, I don't know if there's a lot of guys I would actually do it for him.
Herman Marquez. What's dead may never die.
Yeah, he's back.
I have not heard that name in a long time.
Curveball and slider looked really good today, actually, and the velocity was up. It was his first start back from Tommy John. It wasn't a great start, but it was nice to see him back. Also, I believe became the Rockies' all-time leader in strikeouts.
Oh,
start.
Would you look at that?
There you go.
Let's continue on. Waiver wire pitchers part 2. Jose Soriano turned in a quality start up against the Mariners. 6 innings, 1 run, had 5 strikeouts, 16 whiffs on 87 pitches. Lance Lynn, a quality start up against the Cubs. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 18 whiffs on 99 pitches. 16 of those came on the fastball. And Spencer Arrighetti, a quality start up against the Rangers. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 85 pitches. I think there's a pitcher there with Arrighetti. It might take longer term for him to figure out the control because that has been a big problem. But under the hood, I mean, he has like 2 really good whiff pitches and velocity is solid. So I think there could be a pitcher, but yeah, the consistency has been hard to come by. Any interest in those names, Chris? Arrighetti, Lance Lynn, and Jose Soriano?
I think Arrighetti is the most interesting of them, and I agree with everything you said. He's not a finished product by any means yet, but I think there's an interesting skill set there. He throws hard. The secondaries have all shown some swing and miss potential, so it's been so volatile, right? We've seen like multiple really, really good strikeout efforts from him, and then we've seen just some absolute duds, and it doesn't really seem like has he put together 2 good starts in a row yet? I'm not even sure if we've seen that from Arrighetti yet. So I'm, has not. I guess the most recent 2. One was 5 innings, 2 earned runs. One was 6 innings, 1 earned run. Yeah. That's the best 2-start stretch we've seen from Arrighetti. So yeah, consistency has been a real issue, but he's certainly the most intriguing talent of this group.
The only thing I'll add on Jose Soriano is if you play in a points league, he is a SPARP, so he has that RP eligibility. Kind of does the poor man's Framber Valdez, where it's not a lot of strikeouts, it's bad control, but 60% ground ball rate. So, you could squeak out some good starts getting ground balls as often as Jose Soriano does. And waiver wire pitchers part 3, Kyle Hendricks pitched well at the Cardinals. He threw 7 shutout innings with 3 strikeouts. Luis Ortiz of the Pirates, I think he's pretty interesting too. At the White Sox, 5 2/3, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. His four-seam fastball looks pretty good. The slider looks like a good pitch too, and he's pitching well lately for the Pirates. Gilbert Diaz, also of the D-backs, their prospect they recently called up. That's back-to-back starts, 6 innings of 1 earned run or less. And he was at home against the Blue Jays this weekend, where he threw the 6 innings, 1 run, only 2 strikeouts in this one. Did give up some hard contact, but anything stands out here, Chris? I mean, this is more deeper league stuff, but in those 15 teamers, were you putting bids in on Gilbert Diaz or Luis Ortiz?
Yeah, Gilbert Diaz, I think is somewhat interesting, but probably not a difference maker. Probably the same for Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is doing some interesting things, like you mentioned. The quality of contact has been really good so far this season. That's a big improvement from last year when he just got crushed and was walking everybody. Maybe the increased cutter usage is playing a part in that because his fastballs just got destroyed last year. All in all, I think, I don't know if Diaz has enough swing and miss here to be much more than a lower end streamer, but it's interesting. The stuff looks good. It certainly passes the eye test when you watch him. So I think he's a little more interesting than Gilbert Diaz. And then one thing to note moving forward, just in case this matchup comes again, I saw 2 different Cardinals writers, beat writers and one beat writer, one blogger, who basically said something like the Cardinals just need to sign Kyle Hendricks so they don't have to face him, because I guess he just owns them. And something to keep in mind the next time Kyle Hendricks places the Cardinals for our streamer not to stream segment.
Luis Ortiz, by the way, did want to point out his last 4 games, 3 of those being starts, 1.37 ERA, a .81 whip, over a strikeout per inning, 49% ground ball rate, 14% swinging strike rate. So again, in those deeper leagues, I would be adding Luis Ortiz and just let's see where it goes from here.